Both myself and you guys have been wanting a video on Sylas Support since the beginning of this channel, and I'm happy to say today I have finally found someone who has been playing it consistently this patch for us to analyze. And I'm not BSing this time like I did in the beginning of the Nico support video. Sylas as a whole has never really dropped much lower than a 5% play rate. His historical play rate is actually pretty nuts, but the majority of that play time is spent either in mid or top lane. Only 2% of the time Sylas is played does some maniac try to bring him into the support role. But the person we're analyzing today really isn't a maniac. In fact, he's found a way to consistently win with Sylas Support. The player we're analyzing today is known as... oh man, this can't be right, can it? Alright, the player we're analyzing today is known as Humongous Dongus, and we'll just call him Dongus for short, and he plays on the EUW server. While he is a support main, he's just recently started experimenting with Sylas Support and has garnered a surprising 56% win rate as him while playing in Grandmaster. I was unable to get in contact with Dongus, so I'm just going to speed through this story section today. He has ranked history on this account back to Season 4, where he almost strictly climbed the ladder as support, mostly maining Thresh through Season 7. Throughout those first 3 seasons, he hit Diamond 5 as his highest rank. Season 8, he took a break from League, but came back stronger and better than ever in Season 9, where he still mostly played Thresh, but even more so Alistar to break into Diamond 1. Season 10, he stuck to Alistar and some set support, shout out to that video, to break past Master and into Grandmaster. And now, once again in Season 11, he has found himself in Grandmaster, where he seems to be trying out many different support champions, in which the most recent has been Sylas Support, and he continues to use him to climb higher and higher to this day. Before we unshackle what's great about Sylas, we have to talk about the reasons why we don't see Sylas Support very often. First, Sylas is a champion that thrives with gold and levels, both of which you won't be getting as much of in the support role most of the time. Sylas has no way of sustaining himself or his teammate without fully committing into the enemy, so playing him from behind can end up being an issue. He's not great in every situation. His ultimate relies heavily on the enemy team, so he's not a foolproof pick in every game. And finally, and most importantly, in his lore, he got Lux in trouble, and nobody messes with Lux under my watch. But even with all of these potential problems, Humongous Dongus has found a way to make it work. So at this moment, Dongus is picking Sylas Support into any matchup, but I really suggest you don't. Your efficacy with Sylas in any lane is heavily dependent on what ultimates you can steal from the enemy team. So when deciding whether you should pick him in one of your games, you should look at the ultimates that the enemy bot lane can give you, since you'll be there most often early game, and then the rest of the team as well. You want powerful ultimates more than likely focused around CC, so you can be a strong support, and if you're going up against something like Ashe and Nautilus, it's a solid pick. If you're going up against something like Vayne or Karma, whose ultimates either aren't suited well for Sylas or are minimally effective, maybe reconsider. But regardless of who Sylas is against, he has some incredible early game power with his passive auto attack boost that he gains after every spell he casts. That's why at level 1, Dongus takes his E or abscond/abduct. Since you can cast this ability twice, once for the initial dash and then again for the line skill shot chains that knock up a single enemy, he gets 2 charges of his passive whenever he uses it, making him inherently do more damage than most champions this early. Before minions spawn, regardless of what side he's on, he'll either hop over Dragon Pit or Baron Pit with backup from his team using the first half of his E. He then looks for an enemy to use the knockup portion of the ability on to hopefully grab an early kill, summoner spell, or at the worst help his team get a deep ward down to track the enemy jungle, which is surprisingly successful even in Grandmaster. In lane, that early game power continues to be prevalent with Abscond Abduct, giving Sylas some of the longest engage range out of almost any support. This is also a good time to touch on the fact that unless he has a huge lead, Dongus is only engaging for trades when his keystone of choice is available, Aftershock. One of Sylas's biggest weaknesses is his squishiness after he goes in, but Aftershock all but mitigates that. He just has to hit the second part of his E or else he has no other way to activate it, so don't miss. Note that since this move is basically 2 gap closes, it also has other uses like dodging skill shots or escaping over a wall. The Prior could also serve as another reason to go in. At level 2, he levels up his W or Kingslayer. It's yet another dash, but this one is point and click, so aside from letting you easily get on top of targets and do solid damage, it also heals Sylas for a pretty ridiculous amount and will heal him for up to double the base amount amount depending on how low his health is. Dongus maxes this ability first for the sheer amount of healing it does, making Sylas feel super hard to kill, while the only defensive stats he ever gets throughout the whole game come from Aftershock. Even when he just has a few points of this ability early game, it can make it really difficult for the enemy to win a favorable trade against him. So again, he looks to play around Aftershock and enemy cooldowns to make it near impossible for the enemy lane to come out on top. When he gets even more levels into this ability, it can make him look almost unkillable in the later stages of the game. While you normally want to use this towards the end of a combo to gain the most healing, Dongus also uses the gap close portion of this ability to make the second half of his E elementary to hit. Being right on top of the opponent normally means that they have no option but to get knocked up or flash away. Even if they flash away or use a movement ability, since the second half of his E is a ranged skill shot, he can still pursue them. At level 3, he levels up his Q or Chain Lash. There's not much to say here about this ability. It does damage, and where the chains cross, it will also do a delayed explosion to deal more damage and slow enemies in that area. He uses this to poke through outlane from time to time or slow down an enemy that's attempting to run away, but he maxes this ability last, so he really is using it most of the time as just another way to proc his passive when he's on top of someone or in the middle of a combo. And speaking of combos, since Sylas's ultimate could literally be anything, we're going to talk about combos first here. Just assume as I'm explaining these combos that auto attacks come in between every ability if you're close enough to the enemy. You should almost always lead with your E, so that way it will begin to refresh its cooldown while you hold the second part of it, auto attack. Use your Q on top of them in attempts to hit both parts of it, auto attack. Use the second part of your E to lock them down or chase them down, auto attack. Then use your W to heal up any damage you took and do even more damage, and then auto attack again. Alternatively, if you're lower health, to begin a combo, you can instead again start with E to get closer and auto attack. Use your W to heal up and get right on top of the enemy, attack. Use your Q to slow them down, hopefully hitting both parts, auto. Use second half of your E to knock them up, auto. And by this time, your W at max level should be very close, if not already on cooldown again, so you can more than likely use it one more time to heal up any additional damage you've taken. Once he hits level 6, he takes Sylas's ultimate or hijack. Hijack, as it suggests, copies the ultimate ability of the enemy of his choice, so clearly this makes Sylas super versatile and can completely change how the pace of the game goes for you. Some things you should know about hijack is that once you copy an ultimate from an enemy, you have 90 seconds to use it, so it's in your favor to steal an ultimate when you know you're going to need it soon, or risk the ability going on cooldown completely. After you copy an ultimate from an enemy, there is some time before you can use hijack again on them, so you will need to have multiple favorable targets to use it on to get the most out of it. And also, if you steal an ultimate that has AD scaling, it is instead converted to AP scaling for Sylas, so abilities that may be completely worthless like Jhin ultimate instead could still offer some value for him. We touched on this in the beginning of the video, but more regularly than not, ultimates with big CC work well with Sylas because he either can help his team or combo off those ultimates himself. In mid-game or even early game like our other off-meta high elo support videos, Dongus roams a bunch with his jungler to other lanes. While Abscond Abduct is okay CC, it's not enough by itself most of the time to keep someone in one place long enough for his teammates to capitalize. That's where Everfrost comes in handy, which he normally has purchased by this point in the game. It can extend the amount of time he holds someone in place and set him up for an easy follow-up with either his Q or the second part of his E as well. The scariest part about support Sylas is that if he's gotten fed enough throughout the early game, he can basically 1v1 anyone with Sylas's crazy dueling power. Getting the right CC ultimates can once again help here, but even in this clip, he's overtaking an overleveled Graves in the top lane all by himself. Once teamfight starts, he'll still try to find one enemy to lock down or blow up depending on the game state, and hopefully using one of those CC heavy ultimates that he's stolen. But surprisingly, most of the time, the flow of the teamfight really revolves around his W. You can see him dancing in and out of teamfights while waiting for W cooldown to allow him to extend the amount of time he can be effective and soak up damage from the enemy team. To help wait for cooldowns and draw attention away from him in teamfights and the game, Zhonya's also sees heavy use from him in almost every fight, since getting in the middle of the scrap could spell his demise if he's not very careful. If he can't blow someone up himself or doesn't have a huge teamfight changing ultimate like Gnar ult, he normally instead plays a bit further back by his ADC and looks to peel off an engager with his chains and Everfrost, or to follow up on his own team's engage with that same combo, all but ensuring that the locked up enemy meets their doom and his team flips the team fight early. For his build, he starts every game with a Relic Shield. From there, he starts to rush level 2 boots, almost always getting boots of Lucidity since ability haste is so crucial for Sylas, but against teams with a lot of CC, he may instead purchase Merc Dreads. He pretty much always also grabs a refillable potion along the way as well, and he could also get an early Dark Seal too if he's dominating lane. From there, he builds his mythic item, always getting Everfrost. After that, he will always grab a Zhonya's as an additional core item. If he is continuing to dominate from early game, he'll finish up his Magi's. If the team has a lot of healing, he will grab a Merlinomicon. Other items that could work here as well are Cosmic Drive or Rabadons if you have extra cash to spare. If the game goes long or he needs some more oomph in his build, he'll build an Elixir of Sorcery, and throughout the whole game, as a good support does, he's buying Control Wards and maybe a Wardstone if the game goes very late. For his runes, he takes Aftershock, Font of Life for more healing and better trades, Bone Plating for the same, and because it's just the best rune, and Revitalize for synergy with Kingslayer. He also brings Perfect Timing for a free stopwatch for Zhonya's, and Time Warp Tonic for even more burst healing on himself and a little movement speed when pots are active. For his flex runes, he brings 1 Adaptive Force and either 2 Armor, 2 Magic Resist, or 1 of each depending on his opponents. Sylas Support works well with aggressive ADCs like Callista or Draven, or ADCs with CC like Ashe or Jinx. Sylas Support struggles against long-range ADCs like Varus or Caitlyn, or long-range poke supports like Xerath or Vel'Koz. If you guys liked this video, I heavily suggest you go check out last week's off-meta support video on Neeko support. See you guys next time. Peace.